Thank you for joining us for this interview with a study abroad alum. I'm talking with Rufus Osby, who I had the pleasure of working with when I was a staff member at Whittier College and also accompanied to a faculty-led program to Cuba. And so we have the shared experience of traveling to Cuba together for if I remember correctly, it was 100 years ago, was a music program. So I just want to allow Rufus to introduce himself, maybe tell a little bit about where he studied, what he studied, and why he chose the Cuba program, just to start off.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. Appreciate the warm welcome. Just for starters, I think it was so powerful for me because I didn't really think that studying abroad was a possibility for brothers like me, for people that I knew, for my peers. Going to college was one thing, but actually going to college and having the opportunity to visit another country was something that I haven't really heard of. And it's something that, nobody in my family talked about. So when I was afforded this opportunity and when I heard about it, that's when I began to really get excited and really begin to understand that this opportunity was something that is actually available to everybody. It's just the resources that you have available. So when I did learn that studying abroad was a possibility for me, I wanted to figure out what I can do to make this happen.
That's fair. And I think a lot of our students will be interested specifically in what you might have to say about Cuba, because we do actually have Cuba programs that your experience is completely relevant to. And so can you talk a little bit about the kind of growth that you saw in yourself, maybe from the beginning of the program and to the end of the program, or maybe beyond that? Maybe years later you thought about your experience in Cuba and you're like, oh yeah, that was all because of Cuba, but you didn't make the connection at the time. I'm still doing that myself 20 plus years after my first study abroad program. I wonder if you have something that you could speak to about any personal growth.
First, Cuba was a beautifully humbling experience. From my experience going to Cuba, it really reconnected me with my connection with people, my interest in connecting with people, learning about different cultures, being entrenched in different cultures, learning about the music and the effects that it had on me, on the United States, and different genres as well. So the growth, just looking back at some of the experience I had, I think one thing that sticks out to me most is really how appreciative and how joyful the people of Cuba was, despite any hardships or despite what they may have been going through. The spirit of the people, the kindness of the people, and the genuineness and the humbleness of the people, it really stood out to me this day, and it really kind of carries me to where maybe some things may be happening in my life or some things may not be going right. It really allows you to see things from different perspectives and humble yourself. So I would say that was really growth for me, and also just reconnecting and reassuring that I love to be around people and connect with people.
Good question. Language wise, were you nervous at all about using Spanish, about being able to relate to people abroad? And what did you do to overcome that?
Absolutely. I was nervous. I didn't really know what to expect. I had my Spanish book, a translation book that I was heavily into. It wasn't until I was saved by my now best friend that was on the trip with me, and his name was Anthony, and he was very fluent in Spanish. So I really am very thankful that he was here with me, and I was able to lean on him for any clarity to help understand with my pronunciation, whatever I may need help with. Anthony was a great sport. He definitely helped me throughout the process. But to say if I wouldn't have had someone so readily available and so close to me, I would imagine that it would have been harder for me to communicate with people, especially when we did go out, along the Malecon and we did go out into the inner cities and different places. I felt more confident in communicating, knowing that if I were to stumble, there was somebody that can pick it up or, help me out.
Yeah, I had forgotten Anthony was so fluent. So that was nice too. It is I think about it's a concern a lot of our students have is if they are not traveling to a location where they speak the language, or with somebody else who speaks the language, or we had a faculty leader who spoke the language, but you weren't with him all the time. So it was, I think that's helpful to students to know there are things you can do, right? And in this instance, it was lean on your fellow classmates. And I do want to say, for our students' benefit, is for the Cuba program, in general, we tend to have a high number of Spanish-speaking students who are interested in participating in that program. So I think you would have an experience similar to Rufus's. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more specifically about your experience as an African-American student. Did that identity, or did other identities that you own, play into your decision to study abroad, or your experience studying abroad?
Not necessarily, but as I stated before, I just think the power and the impact on me going, the power and the impact on my community back home, my children and my peers, to know that it's possible, I think that's more so of what I took from it. Because as I say, before, if it wasn't for Anthony or really being introduced to the program, I think I may have went all through Whittier without really understanding that studying abroad was like right there available for me. So as a Black man, to be in college, to study abroad, I think that's a powerful statement to share and to show my peers and my other brothers and sisters that this is something that is very possible. And this is something that is, you can have a life-changing experience. And when I say that, I mean for the better. This taught me so many things along the process, and it allowed me to grow as a young man, to be in another country, away from my wife, away from my family, away from my mother, and to be able to connect and rely on other people and come together. I think that speaks volumes, and it allows a person to really step outside of themselves and see themselves and grow within themselves. So I do think that's powerful for any person, but even more so as a Black man, to let my brothers and sisters know that this is possible. And for anybody that may be fearful or were just like me and didn't think that studying abroad was for them, I'm here to tell you that it absolutely is. And it is one great experience that you won't forget.
That's actually one of the messages that we do want to support, is this idea of, yes, this is for us. But it's not the first time I have heard that idea of, I was not aware of these opportunities, or I was aware of them, but I got the sense that it wasn't necessarily something open to me, because I think lack of representation. And just to give you some background, I'll stop talking. National trends show that less than pitiful, less than 2% of African American students study abroad. And at Cal State Fullerton, that percentage is a little bit better. It's about 4% of our Black students who study, of our study abroad participants are Black students. But obviously there is so much room for improvement. And that is what we want to do with these interviews, and with the resources we're trying to put together and curate to the needs of our students, so that they feel represented and they feel like this is accessible and they have the information to make the choices. We don't want to say you should do this program or that program and here's exactly how you do it, because that doesn't help the student. But we want to empower our students to have the information to understand this is possible, and here is how I can educate myself about what I can do, and here are the people supporting me. So thank you for participating. It's really wonderful to have students who have that shared experience, sharing it with other students. I'll just ask a couple more questions and then I will get you out of the hot seat.
No worries.
Can you tell me, what was the most surprising thing that you experienced or saw while studying abroad, or during the experience of preparing to go abroad or coming back?
The most surprising, well, the food was better than I even imagined. I can definitely say that. But I wouldn't say that was the most surprising. The most surprising was, I would say, was the things that, people on the street would ask for versus what the people in the United States would ask for. For example, there was, when we were shopping, I forgot where, well, it was a plaza.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Maybe like a flea market. And it was
the building, the inside the building.
Yeah, it was a big building.
Yeah.
It was a young woman out there, and she was with her child, and she asked for water. That's what she asked for. And another time we had a conversation, and me and Anthony, like, once we discovered this, we were just trying to give our stuff away, like, oh, these people need water and toothpaste. And so I think that was the most surprising. And it wasn't that they needed these items, because I was more than willing to give them. I guess it was just the difference in what they viewed as important, or what they viewed as valuable, or a necessity for them to survive. The small things is an extra toothbrush, an extra pair of socks, or even water. Those were the most surprising things for me, that just what 4 bottles of water could do to
Yeah.
for somebody or their family.
Yeah,
So
for someone to make a difference in somebody's day. And I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
what you're talking about is something that I think our students really wrestle with when they go to Cuba, is realizing the privilege that when you change the context that they are operating in, the privilege that we come from. When
Yeah.
I think we're here, we still have privilege, but I think we tend to see ourselves as operating at a deficit. And don't get me wrong, there are institutionalized forms of racism that we could talk about all day that have placed people like you and me at a disadvantage on the whole. But it is also very humbling, like you said, I think, to be able to take that opportunity to realize the privileges that we do have. And it's empowering to understand that your perspective in one place, in another place, it's just a completely different game, and I appreciate you bringing up that whole experience, because it is something that in the group I went with recently in the past year, and the last group I went with at Whittier, the students really struggled with those ideas. Some really became defensive about being painted in the privileged category, because they weren't understanding the idea of privilege is just being, you enjoy something that another group of people does not, whether it's of your own merit or not, and that doesn't make you a bad person or them better or you better, or it was just this idea that I think merits a lot of exploration, and Cuba definitely caused some of that self-reflection, I think, for you, definitely.
Yes,
But for
absolutely.
students, every time I've been fortunate enough to go, there's a different experience with that whole concept that I have, and I can totally relate to what you were saying. So thank you. I do remember your face actually after having one of those encounters with someone that you had met on the street when they asked for. I think I remember they were sitting outside of the church courtyard that was facing that building, if I
Yeah,
remember. Is that right? And I
yeah.
remember that, and I just remember your face looked almost like you couldn't believe it. You're just like,
Yeah.
you
I
looked
was
very
taken back.
serious, like,
Yeah, I was taken back,
yeah.
to say the least. And then after that, it's just like, how can I help? What can we do? So yeah, you guys probably don't know, but that's the same woman and another woman. Me and Anthony, we gave them our hotel, and they came, and we gave them all our extra socks, like all our extra everything that we had, like, we
Mhm.
put it in a bag, and they came. It was just, and it was joyful for me, and I would like to speak for Anthony as well, just to be able to do something from
Mhm.
that, and to know, like, I don't even know where we were at in the middle of the city at the time, but they got all the way to the hotel.
Yeah, it wasn't close. It wasn't just like next door. It was a few
Right.
miles on foot.
It
Yeah.
was far. It was
Yeah.
far.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And it was just you relating person to person with these people. Meanwhile, they're caught up in politics between two countries, and we call it sanctions, they call it an embargo. It's just, the perspective, and I think it was just eye-opening to understand what living in those conditions can be like when governments are just making decisions that affect people on, their at the level of their daily lives, but they have nothing to do with those decisions, and neither do we. And so it's powerful to actually see how what those administrative government decisions have on actual people's lives. So
It was,
another phone call, another
yeah.
interview subject. But
another conversation.
Yeah. I just wonder, has your study abroad made any impact on what you perceived about the skills that you have now, that interpersonal skills, or something maybe related to your relationships with other people or with in your job? Or do you feel like it's had some kind of connection there for you?
Yes, I mean, still to this day, reflect on that moment specifically. I reflect on those experiences. As I mentioned before, I think that was a time of growth for me, and that experience right there was so humbling. Oftentimes when I may be in a rough spot or something may not be going for me, or the stocks market's crashing, and my portfolio's not looking as nice. I just think about different situations, and I think about my experiences from Cuba, and I think about just the purity and love that people had throughout the place, and those experiences are allow me to keep going. I guess you would say it motivates me. It allows me to keep going, knowing that my situation is not as bad as somebody else's situation, and
Mhm. Yeah.
and really seeing how I can make my situation the best that I can.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to travel and really connect with different culture. I think to be able to see things from a different perspective and to intermingle with different cultures and see how they flow to the music and just see how they do things. I think that experience in itself, I think, is I don't think you can't get it really anywhere else. So definitely think that traveling to Cuba, studying abroad has changed my life for the better. It's made me more humble. It's allowed me to grow as a person
Mhm.
and has reassured my love to connect with people.
Mhm. What it's all about, right? And yeah, so okay, I know I said two questions, but I'm going back on my word. One, once travel resumes, are you planning to travel anymore again, or where would you go if you could with your family this time? Because I know you have a family that leaving them behind before was required, but I'm sure this time if you had to travel, you would want to bring them with you.
Well, yes, me. Well, I'm hoping that I can be able to travel the world with my family, and that's the plan to give them all the experiences that I have. But on the short to-do list, would love to take them to Cabo and Cuba. Those are the conversations that I have with my wife, and I don't know if it's just because maybe those are two places that I've been, and I really like them. I mean, I need more stamps on my passport, but no, I would like to definitely share those experiences with my family, with my son. And Cuba was a beautiful, one of the most beautiful place I've ever been, the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Have the best pina coladas that I've ever tasted, probably in the world.
Wow,
Um,
yeah, haven't
some
had the same sense.
yes, and the people were great. So it was an overall great experience, and you get to see people like myself out there as well.
Yeah.
You know.
I love that you are talking about wanting to share this experience with your children, because it really does show how these experiences can be inherited and lead to the expectation with the next generation that yes, this is an expectation that this is something I available to me, and I'm going to do it, or I'm not going to do it, but I know it's an option for me. Whereas in some cases, for a lot of people, not knowing that it's even an option is the hurdle to get over. So I think you've got some pretty lucky kids. So glad to hear that. And last, is there anything that you haven't shared that you would like to share?
Go. If there's something holding you back, if you're feeling fearful, I would ask you to jump out on that fear, to jump out on faith, and please study abroad. I think every college student should be able to have an experience like this,
Mhm.
if not in college, during their lifetime. But I would love to see every college student have this experience. I think it's important for growth. I think it's important for each person to really get out there and to experience life on their own, away from family or outside of their comfort zone, or really just get out there to learn and adapt and to grow and to be joyful in life. So please go study abroad. You won't regret it. I don't. I love my experience and I love the people that I've met in the process as well.
Thank you. I don't think I could have said it better. I just wanted to close out by saying thank you, Rufus, for talking with us and sharing your student experience. I just want to actually go back and introduce myself. I realize my name is there in the bottom corner. My name is Shari Merrill. I'm the Associate Director at the Study Abroad and Global Engagement Office here at Cal State Fullerton, if you didn't know that. And we just wanted to just give you another perspective about the world of study abroad, whether it's involving travel, whether it's virtual, whether it's during your undergrad, graduate, whether it's part of a program like the Peace Corps or Fulbright Fellowship or teaching abroad. There's many ways students can become globally engaged, and Rufus has given his time today just to talk about his specific global engagement experience. And I'm so glad he did. So thank you again, Rufus. Now that you've done this once, I will be reaching out to you again. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, no, please reach out to me. I'd love to help. And thank you so much, Shari. I'm honored for this opportunity. I really appreciate you thinking of me. I appreciate you and thank you so much.
Thank you.